I got to do this talk with a mutual friend, Epi, who runs these Bold Awards and a lot of other things, and Michelle was the other guest speaker on this call, and this was actually a few weeks before the AI Marketers Guild launched. But as soon as I heard from Michelle, and she's a big community builder and deep in the creative space, and so there are all these points of intersection where I was just so excited to get her point of view. And I'm like, when I meet a fellow community organizer, my eyes light up, and she's built something really remarkable. So Michelle, I'll let you share more about who you are and what you're doing these days, and then we could dive into where AI fits in with all that. And for those who, part of my last bit of housekeeping is for those who haven't joined before, these are meant to be really conversational. These are community conversations. Michelle, of all people, can appreciate that. And so, this will be a little bit more like talk and fireside chat, but as you have things you want to share, follow up on, chime in, use the chat, just, turn on, unmute yourself and chime in with something, and just glad to get others' perspectives too. So, Michelle?
Sounds good. Thank you for the generous introduction, David. And it's great to see you again since our last connection with Epi as well. It's interesting how the topic continues to evolve and continues to be so relevant and front and center. As David mentioned, I'm the CEO of a company called MoFilm. MoFilm's been around since 2007. We like to consider ourselves a content creative agency that works with brands, basically any content that can be built. Our global creator community of a little over 10,000 creators, we can always find a pretty good match anywhere around the world for any type of content. And we got to a point where, if everybody remembers, when the metaverse and NFTs were the thing to talk about and figure out, and kind of looking at our community and digging into what the future and possibilities were, when bang, all of a sudden AI became a topic that wasn't new, but it became really front and center for the creator community. And that's when we realized we had a responsibility as a company and commitment to our global creator community to figure out, what is the situation here? What are the implications for our business, for our community, and what is the path forward? And so that's how we started just researching, better understanding some of the tools, playing with them, and educating our community, most importantly, on the path forward. So I brought with me, and I don't know if it would be helpful, a slide deck that is a refreshed, sort of updated version of part of the talk that I had along with David a couple of months ago, as again, the space is always evolving. But to get a sense of the folks in the room, do we have most people that consider themselves to be marketers, creatives, somewhere interested in the creative space? See a couple hand raises, head nods. Okay, so we're all operating off of the same baseline here. So I don't know what would be most helpful, David. Do you think maybe I should pull up the slides just kind of as a starting point? I'm always
I think it's a good discussion starter, and just share a bit of where you're coming from there. So
okay, fabulous. Why don't I go ahead and share my screen then? Okay, can everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
All right, perfect. So, well, we've already done intros here. As we approach this topic, and as we continue to build on our perspective here, I think the ultimate goal in digging into this conversation and digging into our understanding and having a really strong POV was really just to democratize and train the creators of tomorrow, so they could learn how to adapt, but also utilize the tools as a superpower instead of being disintermediated by them. The visualization that you see on the right was actually something our executive creative director selected for this talk, and he used the prompts on the bottom left of the screen, and he was inspired using Midjourney to give a little bit of AI flair to the general overview. So with that, we, as we have been looking at the space, and MoFilm is a part of a larger holdco called the Brand Tech Group, which has done a lot of investment in different AI tools. And we came to the conclusion that the tools and the visuals that we see today, as good as they are right now, it's probably still as bad as it will ever be. I mean, take a look at the image on the left. For anybody that's really been looking at the space for a while, there was a time when tools like Midjourney and DALL-E didn't have the best capability and the finer human features. Fingers were always just kind of weird, and eyeballs were wonky and all over the place. And then look at the difference a year makes, right? Fast forward, we've got beautiful lighting and texture and really kind of dancing that fine line between what feels like reality versus not. And it will only get better from here, right? If we can do that in a year, imagine what's next. And we're starting to see some other examples in video that I didn't share for Zoom because it gets jumpy, but when you start to play around and see what's out there, it is insane how accurate and precise the flicker of a whisker on an animal is starting to become. But to ground our, I'd like to take a step back, and David, you might remember this. Many people, as we're talking about this and we're all leaning in and learning, don't recognize that the technology isn't exactly new. It's not even fresh as in the past year or two. So in 2018, there was an AI generated painting called Portrait of Edmund de Bellamy, and that's shown on the left. Funny enough, my maiden name is Bellamy, so the story resonates with me. This was sold at Christie's auction house for, can anyone guess? At the time, 2018, wild guess out there. Looking at the chat.
4 million.
Not quite 4 million, but I'll give you a tenth of that. Thanks for thinking big,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Thanks for thinking big. It was 432,500, I want to say, to be precise. That's pretty astounding for an AI generated picture, right? But then on the right-hand side, that photograph is actually the winner of this year's Sony World Photography Award. And as the photographer was gifted this award, he later refused to accept it. And he admitted to everyone's surprise that the image was actually AI generated. He had used the picture to just kind of test the competition and really to create a larger discussion about the future of photography, the larger threats and concerns he had around it, and said, quote, let me look up this quote. He said, AI images and photography should not compete with each other in an award like this. They are different entities. AI is not photography, therefore I will not accept the award. So it just begs the question, what is the right approach? Is it fair to gain hundreds of thousands of dollars from an AI generated piece of artwork? Or should we really disconnect ourselves from it with transparency and try to break up that sort of confusing line? So it's just, I think it gets to the point where we recognize that the cat is out of the bag. The tools and the technology are here. It's not going away. So how do we embrace this new reality for tomorrow? So again, going back to the creator community, what I thought was interesting when you're really digging into the mindset of the artists themselves, there's this pool of 10,000 people. So we decided to just ask them, where are your heads at? And so when we did that and got a little bit of a pulse check back, we realized that how they were viewing AI and the general sentiments deep down inside were very mixed. So about 38% had a neutral view on AI generated assets. So we were wondering, maybe this is because the community may not understand it fully. Maybe it's metaverse and NFT fatigue. We couldn't figure out where this neutrality was coming from, but then we also saw that about 40% of the community were actually fearful that AI would take over creative jobs. And that's not even including the 15% that weren't sure. So more than half didn't have in the back of their minds, like, what does the future mean for me? So it was a much more bleak outlook than we had expected. But then it was sort of like, okay, again, the technology is here. What do we do from here? And when we actually sat down and started grabbing the tools and playing with them, we realized if you can /imagine it as you would with any prompt, then any dreams, any ideas can be visualized in an amazing way, but much more quickly, much more efficiently, and much more effectively. So whether it's images of dogs in space or a screenshot somebody took of me during a Zoom, pushed it through. I don't even know which platform they pushed it through. I just know the prompt included put Michelle in a backdrop that looks like she came out of a Wes Anderson movie. It was really fun and surprising and delightful. And again, the speed really blew our minds. And so figuring out how to then harness this in a way that could help us create things that would have taken us days or weeks to really imagine and start to build off of is what we started to do in real time. So the image on the left is a photograph that our creative director used. He was actually at an AI film festival. And then he put that image into Midjourney and had a simple prompt, giant pink bunny mascot. And that's what came to life. And again, when I put a prompt into a tool like Midjourney versus my creative director who has been doing this for years, you get two completely different results. This is always going to be 10 times better than mine, but can take something as simple as an image on the left and make it kind of fun and playful and something that could be utilized for a future creative idea. So fast forward, if everybody's following along with me, this is just a look at our company mantra. We believe that many voices are better than one, right? So perhaps we're just another into this sort of idea that creative ideation and being able to leverage the power of a community to deliver the best high-performing results is what makes for great creative work. But then what about all of those other concerns that people had, and what changes if one voice is the only voice in the room, and that is technology, a robot, or even an algorithm? And so there were other things that happened over the course of the year that it's important to keep top of mind, because these are things that can impact brands, that can impact the marketers that we work with. Well, and I'm really hoping, since the last time we pulled this stat, that the numbers improved a little bit more. But across many AI tools, if you asked it to visualize a professional, a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, less than 20% of the results were women. And that's why there was a TEDx conference when these concerns around inclusivity came up, asking a tool if somebody in the C-suite could be visualized. Again, very few results, if any, would be women. And so this tool, Midjourney, was a sort of answer to that. Again, we're kind of recognizing the inherent bias that a learning language model is only going to have based on the data set that it's ingesting. It's really important that the tool alone is not left to create the visualization and image, because there are always going to be diverse perspectives to help have these aha moments and make sure that there isn't something that is truly missed. Moving forward, if anybody's familiar with some of these headlines, there were some very costly mistakes that some brands or even some of the platforms building AI tools have been through. I'm not sure if anybody remembers Levi's leaning very hot and heavy into AI models and receiving a lot of backlash from the modeling community, obviously, but also the brand community as well, in terms of, disintermediating these humans that would otherwise be getting paid and employed by a retailer for this type of work, or even a platform when the technology makes a simple mistake. Google's Bard, when they had the grand live reveal, the error in the result that wasn't didn't have the chance to be fact checked by somebody before it was shared with the entire universe took a big chunk of change off of their share price. So these mistakes are going to happen. They have happened. They will continue to happen. And so just again, having an awareness and having lots of eyes on it, I think is what's become prevalent, but we're not seeing that scare brands away. And I'll get into the legal piece because that's something that we've been spending a lot as well when it comes to branded content, but we see even more brands than ever before embracing a lot of these possibilities, in particular when the combination of community plus technology come together. So I'm going to pause. Yes. Oh, go. We're right at that.
Well, one quick one from Kate. She was just wondering the source of that 20% of results from women, the 20 for the role of being women when with professionals.
I actually believe that if you go to the Miss Journey site itself, they have that noted front and center on their website. I want to say it was a collaboration between them, TEDx, and sorry, it was Women in ACE was the name of the group that did the research to produce those results. I would have to go back to the website to find the exact source, but they had done research in conjunction with TEDx Amsterdam in order to present that data set.
And okay, thanks for that. And Jamie shared a great link in the chat. And then one of the question I was just so curious about with the research you did on your community, like when was that? And then the related question is with the Screen Actors Guild strike, right, that brought a lot more attention to the role of AI generated people and actors and the use of rights and all of that. Did that change views even like for better or for worse, and like how much has that come up in your creative community?
I love that question. So the poll that we took was earlier this year, and then we dove into launching a webinar series to educate them. We're in season 2, and our goal is to re-poll at the end of the year to see how we've done. So I'm sure those numbers have evolved over time. I do have a slide that speaks to the writer's strike. I'm happy to fast forward to that if that might be helpful. Let's see.
And if you're going to get to it soon, that's fine too. But
yeah. Oh, sorry. Here we go. So yes, I did want to talk to the writers' strike because yes, it is more clear and present, right? We believe that it has greater implications for the creative industry, but also for marketers as well. Just to ground ourselves in the facts and where it was and where it landed. The strike was commenced by the writers against the utilization of AI, but the settlement was done in a way that doesn't allow the studios to use generative AI to write scripts in place of the writers. Mm-hmm. But it does conversely state the right to use and access generative AI for script writing, and that sits with the writers. And so to that point, we believe that what it means for marketers is that individual access to AI is as important as and client-specific access. That creatives will actually need a personal generative AI sandbox, and that investigating generative AI training, different tools that can be utilized for scaled adoption, but with the ability to learn in the spirit of the creative's voice is going to be really important. It's going to be important for agencies and brands also with those in-house capabilities as it is utilized for something like script writing. The way that we're seeing it play out, and actually as I was preparing for this, I just took a look at, I think I have on the future slide, just some of the roadmaps for some of the different platforms, and Midjourney specifically calls out their plan for optimization. And this is where, imagine let's continue along the lines of a script writer. Every writer is going to have a unique tone of voice, a unique sense of humor. And if these learning models have the ability to ingest information and then kind of combine it and craft it and massage it in a way that's unique, different than perhaps what we would have come up with ourselves, what if part of that learning model, again, is customized in that creative's tone of, or some of the nuances that uniquely an amazing creative? We'll see more than that. We are personally investing in some technologies on our end as a holdco, not MoFilm specifically, but our parent company, which will absolutely that we equip our creators with as well. And we definitely believe when it comes to creativity, that will be in the future, and that the writer strike really showcases that will be important for that sort of creative uniqueness from one individual to the next.
And so then there was a good follow-up from Tom, and I'm curious how real a concern you think this is. So it says you hire a writing team of 2 rather than a writing team of 10. Like,
so now you hire a writing team of 2 rather than a writing team of 10. I mean, I think it's going to depend on the situation, from what what's trying to be achieved, what the nature and scope of the project is. Creativity takes iteration. Creativity takes the inputs of the creators at the center, and the AI tool is just the brush. So will it be possible for those creative teams to be smaller? Yeah, I don't want to be naive and say that that's certainly not a possibility. However, I believe with the adoption, and perhaps with how the teams might change, how the roles might change, other roles within that world will also be unlocked. Again, kind of digging into the learning models, being able to identify other ways to infuse new and unique tones of voice and other creative minds. I don't think that the technology is going to replace the humans. It really just helps everybody move better and faster and cheaper.
Yeah, and what also I didn't really appreciate this to the extent my partner happened to be on an episode of Law and Order SVU earlier, right before the actors then followed the writers' strike, and just like with how much iteration there is, and she's like even if there was a script for something like a procedural like Law and Order, that the writers need to be there because so much of like what makes the final cut actually happens on the fly, and like kind of an exchange between the writers and actors, and that piece too. I mean, I figured like, okay, like these scripts are like, how much do they really need to change even for some of these just scenes that seem kind of workhorse just further things along, and so having that live give and take between the writers and other people involved in the production also, I think, like, I mean, I'm curious if that helps sort of blunt where like how much AI can make inroads on the final product.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, David. It's area, as I spoke to earlier, it is very clear to me, if I try to go into a creative tool and throw in a bunch of prompts to imagine, whatever it is in my head that I want to throw on a slide or whatever it might be, it never turns out as good as I would like for it to be. Yet I give something to our creative director who there's just something around the ideas, his creative brain, the aesthetic. This is what he does as a discipline all day long, every day for the past 30 years. And so his ability as a creative trained accordingly does not mean that suddenly I can replace him in his job. That iteration, it takes time, and the prompting is a skill set. It's a newer skill that creatives will have to learn, but it is a skill set that will set apart good from great.
Right. And then Lamore, you want to chime in? Thanks for raising your hand.
Yes, one of the things that we saw, we creators are concerned about, I don't know if you remember, there was a story about a publisher who found her book on Amazon selling, even though it was an AI produced. One of the things that we as creators looking at, but also utilizing AI tools, what is the implications? And I know it's a lawsuit, going to happen, and that there will be a lot of them. I'm following one of the top lawyers in Manhattan. He's dealing a lot of issues with AI, but I wanted to hear your point of view. What do you think?
So I'm not as familiar with the specific case that you are speaking about, although it sounds like I should be, and I'll definitely be digging in more. But if I understand the crux of what you're asking, let me point to a slide I have a little bit later in here, which is we think that that is going to start to be addressed, or we should look to the cards in the European AI Act, the EU AI Act for marketers, because what it's going to require is that these platforms do have some kind of disclosure that content was generated by AI, and that the model, should it be ingesting copyrighted content, then that has to be accounted for. And in an ideal world, in the future, whatever content that's ingested, that's copied, ultimately then receive due royalties or whatever it might be owed for that work, if the permissions have been granted for it to be utilized. And that's really where we're starting legality around all of this starting to shape up. It is, and there's no clear precedent for how things will land, but we do see this act being one of the first to address what is legally sound versus what is not. It's often confused, the difference between and licensing. Whereas in order to copyright something, that requires a human author for it to be copyrighted. If it was 100% AI generated, and then there's no human author to give credit to, there's no human author to reward or pay royalties to for that output, versus licensing, having the license to use materials that were generated. That's very, very different. And many of the different have a lot of just broad strokes policies, but also kind of in between the lines require that you also give them permission to use it if they want to. So a lot of these areas are still being sorted out, but I do think when it comes to somebody's actual material being utilized, we will see more cases being challenged, and it will start to help us understand how this act, when it's up and running in full force, will help protect copyrighted, human-based creative intelligence. I hope that, sorry, I was a little convoluted, but I hope that addresses your...
I think the challenge would be, and this is something that we as strategies of brands really look at, and considering that small, like bigger brands will have a better handling on that. Small businesses, mid-sized businesses will have a lot of challenges. Also, writers, copywriters, and creative should look at the same issue in the same matter, meaning how can you protect yourself legally? Do you have protection? Should we come together as marketers, as groups? And this is a great platform to talk about that. What is happening legally with our own rights and how to better utilize those tools, but still keep to be cognizant of royalties and legal rights and understand the copyrights of everything.
Yes, yes. To one point, I completely agree with you that it's really especially for the individual freelancer, small businesses, et cetera, to make sure that there is an understanding of the law and how to protect oneself. We spent a ton of time as a group, as a holdco, looking at the various legal clauses from one platform to the next in the creative space. And as I mentioned earlier, you find that for the basic, like your average individual that wants to throw something in a chat GPT or Runway or Descript, you're not really looking too closely at the legal terms. You're just kind of using it for your own, whatever needs. But businesses do need to take a look, because when broad license is given, sure, you can take that image that you created, you can take that text that you generated and utilize it on a billboard for lines in a commercial might be. However, the protections are not there until you talk to those platforms and actually have a discussion and negotiate with them. The broad strokes are almost intentional because it's just easier, right? Finding is that they don't really care to actually, for a business, for example, narrow down the scope to such a tight swim lane that the only utilization would be if it is required that they pull out that information for legal purposes or for the actual use case for the end business, for the end user. Very, very narrow scope is something that so far we're seeing is very easy for businesses to negotiate with very little pushback. Again, so far, but we've done a lot of work across a lot of tools to be able to feel confident that anything that we do for brands, with brands, these tools are fully protected and not something that these platforms can personal use or learning models. At the individual level, at the small business level, we need to be talking about it more, just so more people are aware and can make sure that the tools and platforms that they're using are also set up in a way that they are protected as individuals.
Yeah, and Brooke, you chimed into the chat, but just before we shift to anything else, I mean, having a lawyer on the call is also so helpful, and I'm glad that you're part of this. I was just wondering if there's anything, Brooke, that like you thought was worth noting or clarifying here.
No, I think Michelle did a great job discussing. I think the key really is looking closely at the terms and conditions and knowing what rights you have, and of course on the other side protecting your own stuff. So working closely with lawyers is always a good thing in this space. But truly, I mean, in terms are written in a way that can be quite tricky purposefully. So understanding what the words mean on their face doesn't actually always capture it. So truly having a lawyer take a look and help you out on that, at least for the moment until things kind of settle down, could be very, very helpful.
Yeah, so more standardized. And not all lawyers are created equal in this space as well. I have seen some in the discipline where if there's any tiny little bit of risk, let's back away. So you do need those that have kind of spent some time looking at this, see the future and the necessary beast that this is, and just really identify, like getting really, really prescriptive with the copyright and for issue. And if they focus on that, that should be helpful to enroll legal in a precise way to help the individual or business.
And just one real practical question, and this could be for you, Michelle, or Brooke as well. Like if you spent time looking at the terms of just like the major platforms, right? So ChatGPT, Midjourney, maybe Claude, and a few others. Like aren't any of them especially like creator friendly and like buttoned up in terms of like if you're doing something, like, regardless of the responsibility that like a creator has to disclose things to their client and that relationship, but for if the creator is creating something that like they can be more confident than that what they own is theirs, and that there's some of those protections in place, using one platform versus another. Are they even like gravitating more toward one versus another? Like, is that actually a differentiating factor right now or not?
Well, so Michelle, I don't know if you want to jump in as well, but the two things that I'm seeing, OpenAI has specifically said that they will not have the voice of any author that is currently alive. So if you say, please write something for me in the voice of David Sedaris, that will not happen. So OpenAI has specifically said that. I think you can also look at the ones that are offering the indemnity for IP infringement, that they feel confident that the size of their models and the way that things are spit out is that it won't directly infringe or even come close to infringing, that there's enough information in that there's enough that it's creating on that it won't reflect your work. So I think if there's an indemnity, they've gotten comfortable with the output.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I think that was well said. There are shades of gray in between. I forget which one was it. ChatGPT, where you had to fill out the form at one point to select that, they wouldn't utilize or opt out of utilization of your inputs into their, I think the the pressures from there's another slide on this. The pressures from some of the moves that others are making are certainly to making sure that the end users are protected. I can't see the larger, more broadly used platforms not taking a step in, otherwise they're going to risk just being avoided altogether in the creator space. So I think it takes these early examples to get more of them to follow accordingly.
Yeah. So also, like, I'm happy to see more of the presentation, but in the last 10 minutes, we've covered way more ground than I anticipated. I'm glad that because like you really can't talk about creativity without talking about rights and all these things go hand in hand. But are there any follow-ups? I mean, we had some great discussion with Jamie and Tom and others in the chat. Anything and Virginie as well. So anything else you want to ask Michelle or chime in with here? I want to make sure to get a lot of these great voices.
I have a question.
Yeah, please. Thanks, Kate.
So my question is really around the creative process, and at your agency, how you approach the choice of how to incorporate creative that comes from bots versus creative that comes from humans, what that blend is, and sort of what your thoughts and your creative director's thoughts are around where's the right places to incorporate creative that is synthetic, and where are the right places to incorporate creative that comes from people.
It's funny, right as I had taken off the screen share, because I thought we had jumped around the most, it was right where we stopped, where I'll show you. Oops, apologies, I did not mean to come out of present mode. I know it can be a little small. 1 second. Can you see that again?
Yeah.
Let me just rewind. I think this is a good example of actually where we were going with the creator community and imagining new information. And so the example on the right-hand side is how we dipped our toes into it. One of our valued clients is DoorDash, and they had a campaign for a merchant based in Nashville, Tennessee called Hattie B's, and they make hot, spicy chicken. They're known for it. It's super delicious. And so here's an example, actually, and I know it's Midjourney is not the only tool that we used. It's very visual, so we in here, but utilized Midjourney for the storyboarding piece, right? And again, this isn't any copy that we're going to put into the ultimate result, but just kind of taking the ideas, the concepts, listening to the client, going through the brief and building out this imagery to work with the directors to figure out, okay, what is this going to look like when we film? And so you can see some of these examples that ultimately translated to an in front of the camera result. And then I took the sound off here, but you can see how went from these sort of playful ideas to an actual live filmed where, you know, we're not worried about the utilization here. We're not worried about the you know, the images causing any feathers to be ruffled with legal. It was really just for ideation. There's another piece here around Chat GPT for filmmakers. We just did our webinar on this on YouTube, where we have guided our filmmakers how to very simply utilize Chat GPT in ways that can actually be extremely valuable for their creative process. So for strategic research, leverage ChatGPT to summarize information, to list other popular brands or competitors in the market for that research, provide the sources of information for at least up to a certain date. I forget the latest update that now, at least it's not like a year ago or whatever it was before. Or creating audience profiles. In the creative development zone, we're seeing, again, we've talked about script writing to a degree, at least for thought starters and thinking through alternative versions, right? Here's my idea, like, let's pressure test it. What is, show me the opposite point of view, like convince me that my version is not the best. Creating shot lists, shot suggestions, image search prompts, using text to image in several of the AI platforms. And then on the execution side, using it to translate scripts into different languages, creating casting briefs and social media call outs for actors, music genres. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and we're just talking about ChatGPT. We've played around with this script, although I think for legal conversation, that's one platform that still has some work to do with the piece. But that's a great way to just kind of see very quickly and efficiently, do we have a lot of ums and ahs that we need to edit out? How do you slide the meter? I mean, I think it'll be great once all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted for creators to be able to use that freely for post-production. But it has a place really in every single step of the creative process in ways that I think still have not even been imagined yet.
Well, love this, and it's a great example. Yeah, I think that that Hattie B's use case is perfect, and not just because this call always makes me remember how hungry I am as we get toward the end. But David Cutler.
Hey, I'm wondering if there's some products here for us to maybe make an agenda within this organization, within, David, we talked about how to build business around what you're creating here. Disclosure tool sets, copyright platforms. When the creator wants to not only distribute and get copyright, well, there's lawyers that are building these things. Maybe we have our own version of it. that we can either license theirs or build our own, or, you know, just make it a pet project, if you will. It sounds like this is like the core of everything that we're doing, the distribution and ownership of our assets. So just listening to this, thinking that these are the tool sets, these are the pickaxes and the shovels, right, for this next Web3 era. And why shouldn't we have our own projects that we build for us, but we also build for our friends and partners?
Well, I think it could be a great point of brainstorming and discussion. Maybe there's even a separate chat, whether one of these or a kind of sidebar on this. Like, it's fun because, like, even in this space, for those, especially more on the ad tech side, you probably know Richie Glassberg, and so over at Safeguard Privacy, I know some folks like Tom raising their hands, right? And so like Richie is one of the world's experts on any and all policies, right? Especially in the ad space. So I'd much rather see how AMG can collaborate folks like his group and other practitioners here, but what can we do together, and where can the community involvement benefit? Like, it's absolutely an open point of discussion, especially if it helps build on top of the amazing work that the subject matter experts and practitioners are already doing. So
yeah, I'll just offer up. I'm on the advisory board of the Future of Privacy Forum. So if anybody ever has wonky data privacy questions, feel free to reach out. And yes, Richie's done some really awesome stuff with Safeguard. So
yeah.
My background is also in responsible AI at Facebook, so happy to also get any insights and connect people. I also put it in the chat, but David Cutler, I think, like, there's a lot of new startups that are working to solve this exact problem you're saying. I'm currently going through the Techstars NYC, and just like from the top of my head, I can already think of some people. So I really, like, for anyone who's interested in that, I highly recommend looking through their portfolio companies.
I think all of them need what we are, which is smart people leaning in and beating the crap out of these things, so we can actually be practitioners. And a lot of these startups, and I've looked at them too, mostly around Boston, you know, they have Web3 visionary utopian, and they're not practitioners, right? So we can actually bring that voice, that reality. We're going to use it on Tuesday in a meeting, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, I love this. I don't want to get too sidetracked, especially as we hit the end. Michelle, just best ways to stay in touch with you. Are you looking for more creators to join? And also, there were comments like, would you be able to share the slides? I could post them in the community, anything that's shareable, but yeah.
Sure thing. Yeah, so for anybody that wants to check out the free sessions that our producers and creatives have been providing to the community, we post them on YouTube within a few days of going live. We use the pseudonym Mo Labs, and our handle is We Are MoFilm on Instagram and LinkedIn. If you want to follow us there, we post all of our lessons on any of those sites. And then for anybody going to CES, I will also be talking more on this topic on stage on a panel that Wednesday. I want to say it's January 7th. So if anybody's there, hit me up, find me on LinkedIn. Looking forward to conversation and learning more along the way.
I mean, Michelle, this is incredible. Anything shareable from this talk, I'd love to make sure the community has it. Your follow-up survey when you come out with that, like in any ways that you're publicizing that, I know we're going to want to see it. Thanks everyone for a really great discussion. I'll see at least a couple of you later today at the New York event, and we've got some other great insiders coming up. I'm really looking forward to Tamika Key in 2 weeks, the ad futurist, and so have a few good discussions before the end of the year. Lots more to come. So hope everyone has a great rest of your week. And Michelle, thank you so much for this. This is just terrific. So
thank you, David, and thank you everyone for the great conversation and questions today. Appreciate it.